Braylon's a fierce competitor. I think that shows on Saturdays. Every time he shows up in the building, he's got the same mentality. I think that approach is what helps him be successful. I think that approach is what gives him so much confidence. And when you do that every day, even when games don't start right or practices don't start right, you're able to bounce back because you create enough habits. You created enough sweat equity to be able to bounce back and persevere through some of those situations. So I think for starters, his approach and his just mentality every day of trying to find a way to get better, I think is what contributes most to that.
So what'd you see from Chris leading up to the Alabama game after a Arkansas game where the ball didn't go his way much?
I really saw the same approach. I think, as a wideout, sometimes you get it your way, sometimes you don't, and you got to always expect it. And if it don't, you got to roll with the punches. Didn't really see a different approach. I think he came into the Bama week with a really good approach, which he's done for the most part this year. We look forward to getting that same approach and that same mentality at practice every week.
I know with the two freshmen out, your hands maybe tie a little bit on being able to rotate some, but how do you feel like your top three guys are handling the workload of hardly ever come off the field? Are they still playing with the same energy level and things like that in games?
Yeah, I think they are. I think they handle it well. I think they all want to be out there. I think especially you had two young guys last year that didn't get as many snaps as they wanted to. Now they're in the position that they asked for. Obviously you do see it late in games, but what we try to do as coaches is try to slow our tempo down, try to get in and out of personnels to try to maybe save their legs here or there. So you can do some things schematically and with play calling to help them. But those guys want to be out there. They're competing every single snap, and that's all I can ask for.
How much can they do during the week to sort of recovery, make sure they're staying fresh?
Yeah, you got to make sure that you got a real unique plan for each individual guy. You got to be very intentional during the practice week with how much of the player load and volume that they're getting on game day. For one, you got to get their legs back, and two, after you get their legs back during the week, you got to get their speeds ramped up to replicate what it's going to feel like in the game. And so that's something that Coach Hype and I, and also our strength and conditioning, we're very intentional about and in tune with. We're meeting about that almost once or twice a day to make sure we're taking care of those guys.
As kind of a follow-up to that, with the volume they're taking, how clean do you think they're playing? Do you see fatigue affect, pass catching? Do you see it affect route running when you look at the tape? How clean do you think that group is playing overall?
I think they're handling it well. Like some of the drops, obviously we got to clean up, but I think that's the offense as a whole. But I think, I think you determine that by are they still getting separation? Does their technique still look clean? Are they winning one-on-ones? And from the first quarter to the fourth, that shows up. I think the focus piece is what's got to be ramped up, and that's obviously things that we're addressing in practice.
Didn't hit as many deep shots last game. How much is that just dictated by what the defense is giving you, and what does that open up when those deep shots are not there?
Yeah, I think naturally as you make plays down the field, defensive coordinators in this league aren't going to let you live on the long ball. And so we're able to adjust to that as well. Now, what you do see is you see us getting different breakers, deep outs. You see us over the middle field, 15, 20 yards. Like, that gives us some ability to run different routes and allow these guys to put that kind of stuff on tape. But it also allows you to put that on film. So now defenses can get tendencies about your breakers, about your routes, concepts, patterns. And I think that shows up a lot this year, especially with the variety of things we're doing on offense. We ran a ton of routes the other night. We put a bunch of plays on tape, and you see guys at every single level getting open, and it's clear separation at the top. And so that goes back to Brent's question. I think, from the first quarter to the fourth, we're creating separation. You just got to add the focus piece. And I think you'll create explosives, just not vertically. You'll catch it underneath, and it'll be more of an explosive after the catch.
You touched on Mike and Braylon not having a lot of experience coming into this season now that they're playing so much. What is something for each of those guys over the course of the season that you've seen them sort of grow because they're now playing in games and getting to experience kind of how to play and succeed at this level?
Yeah, I think, one, handling the volume. I think that's physical and mental. When you step into that role, especially when coaches see that you can handle it. They'll throw things on you to see how much of capacity you have. So handling the volume of information in the meetings, things that we're installing, and then being able to handle the physical volume is where I've seen both of those guys take huge jumps. I think, the next step for both of those guys is going to be just true playmaking ability consistently down the stretch. Mike made a huge catch on the 4th down. They're playing 2-man. We went on a dig cut, which is really tough to win on in 2-man. It was huge there. Braylon, I think that same drive, him and Joey on the scramble rules, he converted. I think it was like a 3rd and 6 or something like that, but converted on a crosser over the field. Like those type of situations when the game's on the line, offense needs you. I think those guys' next step is they consistently make those type of plays.
All three of your guys are in the top, I think, 10 or 11 in yards in the SEC. A lot of teams have a really good one. No other team in the SEC has 3 guys that high. Why do you think you have 3 guys that are all sort of in the mix near the top of the SEC in yards?
I think, for one, those guys are very talented. I think also, to their credit, they come in here, they buy in, they work. And I think what we're doing on offense, what we're coaching these guys, it translates. And I think it's simple as that. I think, a lot of guys, teams in this league would love to have 3 guys and can go out and put up numbers. And I think we're showing it week in and week out. That's got to stay consistent. We can't get, off our routine there. But as long as those guys keep working and not start to look at those stats and not start to look at where they are in rankings, as long as they keep working, we'll keep progressing. As soon as they start listening to newspaper clippings or they're on Twitter, that's where you start to stunt your growth. So I think continuing to talk about maturity and being a pro from me, I think is going to help those guys continue to take steps and not worrying about what's outside this building.
I know you've talked at length about this position being built on confidence and needing those confidence-building type plays at the wide receiver position. Joey talked about wanting to place the ball better for his guys. How are you maybe helping those guys maintain that confidence even through those drops they have in games?
Yeah, it's good. I think understanding the psyche of a receiver is unique. They're fragile at times. They're also, really stern at times. So it's important for me, having played the position, to be able to identify when and what they need. A lot of times after a drop, it's not the time to go crazy on one of these guys, because a lot of times they're hard on themselves. I think you love them up first in those situations, and then you pull them back later on, and then get them whatever technique clean up. It may have been their eyes. It may be just focus. You get that cleaned up so they can implement it. I think there's other times receivers make a lot of plays, and we get kind of big-headed. I think it's time for me to identify then, we got to come back down to earth. We got to be more even keel, because with your emotions going high and low, there's no way you can keep consistency. So I think me being able to identify that is the number one thing, and then me implementing that where it's needed.